Anyways, he was diagnosed with this graft versus host disease, and I'm like thinking, God, I just don't understand this. Why would you do this? And I'm sure we've all questioned God on different things. But at that point, for me, I realized, okay, this is what God has been working on me. He's like going, Margaret, are you really going to give it to me? You're going to take it back. Are you really going to give it to me? Or are you going to keep taking it back? How many of us do that? I know I'm not the only one. We give it to God, and then 30 minutes, an hour later, we're like going, well, God, I don't know. Maybe, So he's working in my heart, and he's saying, are you truly going to give it to me this time, Margaret, or are you going to take it? You give it to me, I can't trust you. How can you, how can you do that? And so truly, that's when I realized, okay, this is what's happened in my heart, and this is what's brought me back as a changed person. Because I will not. If I don't feel like I can give it to God, I'm not giving it to him. Because he doesn't. I don't want him to question me. I don't want him to say, were you really going to give it to me, Margaret, or are you going to take it back? And at that point, then Glenn started making a turn for the better.
It got pretty touch and go for us. It wasn't looking good. We knew it wasn't looking good. We never did look up graft versus host disease. Matter of fact, we haven't to this day looked it up to really take a good look at what it is. But there was a turning point for me, and one of the turning points was I was laying in my bed. It was late at night. It was probably between 12 and 1 o'clock, and God just came to me and said, "What do you want?" And I knew what he was asking me. He was asking me, basically, did I want his will, or was it just healing that I was looking for? And I told Jesus that I want what you want, and I meant that at the time too. If what he wanted was to bring me home, then let's go. Let's just get this done with. He'd made it really clear to me that he could provide for Margaret much better than I ever could. So that wasn't a question. But I told him, I just want what you want. And then about probably the next night or so, I had another conversation with Jesus, and he'd come to me and just basically told my liver to shape up. It was over. It was done. I know that sounds crazy, but those were his words, not mine. So, and he told the rest of my body to come in line. And from that point on, healing started happening. All my brothers and sisters were going to buy plane tickets to come and say their last wishes. They'd all looked up this dreaded disease and everything, and so they figured, later we found out that about 3% of the people that get this live. So I'm a 3%er, I guess you'd say, whatever that means.
In saying that too, just to kind of make a little bit, in the meantime, when Glenn had this, and, Jesus is telling him, these cells have to be healed. These cells, they just have to, in the meantime, just for confirmation, it was kind of like, you really don't need confirmation from God, but just kind of, I just now remembered this. Keith and Christy had it over whenever, they read it and all of this stuff. And I remember my last text with Christy. She said, Keith and I are praying that those cells are just dead in Glenn's body. And then we got, the news that. And so, talking about a really, and we have to share this just because, when the hospitals think that a person is going to pass and they're going to die, they send in palliative care. Well, palliative care, they come in and they want to make sure you have everything in order and that where your life stands and, everything that, that you've got everything in place. Well, these two guys come sitting, and they're sitting there, and Glenn and I are already feeling better. We're at peace. Whatever, God is already starting the miracle, but these two palliative people come in, and they're talking to us. And Glenn and I laugh about it to this day. They were serious, and I do take their conversation serious, but it was like we had church in the room whenever they came in, because at that point in this whole deal, I was not going to let God not get the glory and the credit for what was happening. And so whenever these palliative people come in and started talking to us, it was like, well, do you have? And I'm like going, he is healed. He's a miracle. He's made it this far. He's going to go on. And they're just like going. And so, the honor was for us sharing our belief and sharing what we believed, is that to be asked to be ambassadors for the palliative care at the hospital, that's an honor. Whenever you, of course we decline because I don't want to live in Seattle. This is home, Eureka, Montana. So thank you very much. I don't want all of that busy stuff over there. But just to kind of put things in perspective of, after that it was just like miracle. I mean, we just shared our faith like no other.
They came in, and I think they were expecting, kind of a death sentence look on our faces. I mean, they came in, they were very solemn and very grave and everything. And we encouraged them. We told them everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
I told them about my grandchildren, how that I wanted them to, to have the gospel and Jesus Christ living in them. And to back up just a little bit, whenever I had this test done. It was called a bone marrow biopsy. It's where they drilled into my hip and they take bone marrow out of that. Yeah, it's gruesome too.
Well, that's because the graft versus host disease is more common in bone marrow transplant patients, and that's the reason why there's not a whole lot of research on it for liver transplant patients. And that's the reason why a lot of the fatalities are the way that they are. And in the meantime, when Glenn was diagnosed with this graft versus host disease, 2 other people passed away just within that time, just thereafter that. And they were people that we knew. And so, that's just the miracle in itself right there, that we see Glenn standing here today. And if we don't give God all the glory, that he's a miracle. And the way the miracle happened was through God and prayers and us having faith, believing.